Well, hello. Welcome to the Nothing is Wasted podcast. If you are a longtime listener, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for making the time, creating the space to sit down and have conversations with us. We're so grateful for you. Whether you're driving in your car, whether you're listening to this while you're taking a walk or doing your chores around the house, or however you consume your podcast. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. Maybe you're distracted at work because you're taking some time to listen to this. We're really grateful to have you a part of the Nothing is Wasted community. This is a place where we want to meet you in your pain and provide a pathway through, because there is a pathway through. And so we're going to bring on some folks that will be able to, one, testify to the fact that God shows up in the deepest and darkest parts of our story. And we're going to bring people on who are going to give us some good counsel and some good advice from their own lived experience, and sometimes from what they feel like they've done wrong. Some of the school of hard knocks, all through a Christ-centered, biblically centered perspective. And today's guests, oh my goodness, what a treat this was. I sat down with Dave and Ann Wilson to talk about their latest book, How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. That title is amazing. How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. Listen, I know whether you want to be, I know you're not used to being honest in Christian settings. Oh, when I speak at churches, I often go, hey, listen, I know you're not used to being honest in church, but if we're honest, and if you're honest with yourself, if you are a wife that is listening to this, you have had that thought before. All I want to do is yell at my husband. How do I speak life to my husband? And we've all been in there. We've all been there in relationships. We want to speak life, but what ends up coming out is critique, frustration, criticism, contempt, right? In fact, the Gottmans, which are just prolific marriage counselors, they talk about the four horsemen, and criticism and contempt are two of the four horsemen that destroy marriages. It's interesting because they said that they can predict with pretty precise accuracy who is going to wind up getting divorced by just observing their interactions and filtering it through the four horsemen that they have put together as a rubric. And so it's contempt. Let me see if I can remember them off the cuff. Contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Those are the four horsemen. And we bring out contempt and criticism in this conversation with Dave and Ann Wilson. And it's amazing how it's usually our closest relationships, especially our marriage, those who know us the most, who see everything about us, how they can tend to either nurture life in us or they can chip away at life. And we don't really realize how powerful our words are, especially when it comes to how we direct our words toward our spouse, what we say to them, what we say about them. And the question that we begin to explore in this conversation is, what if the very thing that we think will fix our spouse is actually the thing that's tearing them down, that's actually holding them back or restraining them from becoming who we desire for them to become? It's kind of an interesting paradigm. And so I can't wait for you to listen to Dave and Ann Wilson. They are no holds bar. I'm telling you, they are the realest, rawest people you've ever met. Christy and I actually got to spend some time with them on their podcast, Family Life Today. I'm not sure if that episode has released yet, but we flew down to Orlando, spent some time in their studio at Family Life, which is an extension of Cru Ministries, if you're familiar with Cru. And so we were down there at Cru headquarters. What a delightful time it was to spend some time talking to them about our stories and blending families and just the intricacies and complexities of blending families and marriage in blending families. And so, as I've stated already, they host the Family Life Today podcast and have incredible conversations with people there. And Dave has served as the Detroit Lions chaplain for a long time, as well as planted and pastored a thriving church in the Detroit area, and is now pastoring a different church, or kind of a teaching pastor at a different church in the Detroit, Michigan area. But it's just this conversation is so real. It's so raw. They're so transparent. And I love that they talk about just kind of the hidden dynamic of resentment in marriage and how easily it can creep in and begin to erode at everything about our marriages. And here's what's interesting. Christy and I just had a family meeting with our kids the other night, and we told them this. We kind of pulled the curtain back and we said, hey guys, we have a very real enemy, and the enemy wants to destroy our family. And we asked them, our kids are 12, 11, and 5. We said, why do you think the enemy wants to destroy our family? And they were they didn't understand. They didn't know. I said, well, first of all, the enemy hates families. The enemy hates families. He hates marriages. He hates healthy, thriving, functional homes. And that's because the way God's kingdom works is through family, restoring families, bringing broken families either back together or restoring them through adoption. This is the mode of operation. God is always about building family. That's why we call the family of God, because he wants to bring things together and bring life to it. He doesn't want to divide. But the enemy, he wants to divide the things that God wants to bring together. He wants to bring death to the things that God wants to bring life to. So we said, kids, why do you think the enemy is trying to destroy our family? And they were like, I don't know. I said, because guys, our family helps lots of families. We help a lot of families experience hope and experience healing and experience the life of Jesus Christ and redemption and restoration. And we get to help thousands of families. So of course the enemy is really upset about that. He can't rob from us, friends, what only God can give us, and that's our salvation. But what he can do is he can try to stop or stifle the purposes that God has for our life. And he will do this by getting from the inside. He infiltrates the inside and getting us divided. Whether it's a divided spirit, whether it's divided home, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's a divided organization, he always weasels his way in to try to divide, create division. And he will often do this through pain, trauma, resentment. This is why many marriages that experience the loss of a child or a significant loss somehow that is outside of their marriage, they can't metabolize that together. They can't process through it. It doesn't drive them closer together, but it actually drives them apart. It ends up resulting in a separation or divorce. And it's so sad to see what the enemy will use and try to leverage to break things apart. But what the enemy means for evil, God means for good and for the saving of many lives. And that's why Dave and Ann are pulling back the curtain right here to try to be honest and real about their own struggles so that we can relate to that and so that we can have some handholds, some tools, some practical tools to know how to bring life into our relationships, bring life into our marriages, bring life into our home. I mean, words, friends, have profound weight. Proverbs remind us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. And you get to choose. You get to choose the direction that your words are going to point people. You get to choose what kind of weight your words are going to have when they fall on people. It's going to be a weight of life that lifts people up, or a weight of death that pulls people down. And it's so crucially important in our families and in our marriages. So I'm not going to act like the expert in this. Dave and Ann have so much more experience in not only their own marriage, but also helping other couples through this, other families through this. Their latest book, like I said, How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. It's available now. We'll put links in the show notes or at the bottom of this YouTube video so that you can pick that up in a very convenient way. Before we dive into my conversation, one thing I want to mention to you is that if you have not attended the Zoom call that I do once a month called 5 Steps to Taking Back Your Story, no matter what you've gone through, I want to invite you to attend that. If you're looking to take a first step or a next step in your healing journey, whatever you've gone through, I'd love to spend some time with you. This is always a sacred time. We always have several dozen people who are there. Cameras on. It's like a webinar because I teach some, but it's not. It's a Zoom call. It's live. I'm here live, and we turn our cameras on and we turn our audio on, and you ask questions, and I get to serve you in real time with whatever you're going through. It's almost like kind of a live coaching on some respects. And I want to introduce to you what I believe are the 5 steps that everybody has to go through to begin to take back your story from the enemy. And then I'm going to also introduce you some resources and some tools that we have as a ministry that might be able to help you as you're moving through your specific valley. There is a way out of the valley, but the only way out of the valley is through the valley. You can't side skirt it. You can't avoid it. You can't escape it. You've got to go right through it. And we want to walk with you as you go right through it. We want to be your guide. So join me on the next 5 steps to taking back your story Zoom call, nothingiswasted.com/start here to register for the next one of those. And now we're going to go ahead and dive into my conversation with Dave and Ann Wilson. Well, Dave and Ann Wilson, it's so great to have you guys on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. Thanks for joining me.
We are glad to be here.
We are. We're excited to be with you.
You know, we were just joking around that I saw the title of the book as I was opening up the notes, and I just was tickled to death. I called out and I said, "Hey, Chris, you've got this title of this book. This is amazing." She goes, "It sounds like I need to read it." You've released a book called How to Speak Life to Your Husband. And here's the kicker: when all you want to do is yell at him. And I absolutely love this, not only because it kind of breaks the ice a little bit. We can chuckle about it, but because it's so true and it's so relevant and it is such a felt need, especially on the spectrum of lots of different kinds of marriage and relationship and family pain that we experience throughout life. We'll talk about that, but I'd love for people to hear just from you guys on what do you do? Tell us a little bit about Dave and Ann Wilson. What is life like for you first, and then we'll dive into this.
Well, our claim to fame is, playing quarterback at a place just a couple miles north of you, Ball State.
That's where we're going to start.
I have never started
right?
a podcast that way. I don't know
Hey,
why
you'll
that
have plenty
came
of people that resonate with that.
I doubt it, but maybe a few. They weren't alive when I was playing. I guarantee that. No, we've been in the Detroit, Michigan suburbs for almost 40 years. We just celebrated 45 years of marriage. We came to Detroit, I won't even say when.
Out of seminary.
Yeah, right out of seminary to be the Detroit Lions chaplain. So that's what brought us here. And I did that for 33 seasons. Didn't know when I was finishing up that I would end up being the losingest chaplain in the history of the NFL. But people have actually done the math and said that's a real deal. And then, as you know, we started a church. One of your buddies came on our staff years ago called Kensington back in the 90s, and it's still going. And we went through succession there after 30 years and then joined Family Life. And we do a podcast radio show called Family Life Today and also speak at their marriage weekends called The Weekend Remember.
Yeah, we have 3 kids, all married. We have 7 grandkids. So legacy is important to us, and sharing real life stuff is really important to us too. Like, life isn't easy, but God, as you know, but God can use some of that pain to hopefully draw others closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, there's been yelling in our marriage.
And resentment and all kinds of things that maybe other people can relate to.
I mean, we never thought that would be the title of the book. That was a working title. We sent to Zondervan, our publisher, and they're like,
I just kind of chuckled when I sent it to them, like, guys, this has been my working title. And they let us know, like, I think we're going to keep that.
Yeah.
So here it is.
Well, it's so true. I mean, especially as you're diving into the kind of endeavors that you guys have, where you're pushing back darkness, you're reclaiming territory from the enemy, you're working in God's kingdom, you're doing some big things, you're going out trying to, in big faith, really build some big things. Of course, you're going to have some ways that the enemy is going to try to separate and divide. That's his MO. But I'd love for you, maybe sometimes it's just helpful to normalize that. Sometimes it's helpful to just call that out. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in that? And maybe, I don't know if you want to lead out on that, but you just mentioned the word resentment. That's something that can very easily creep in undetected often. Talk a little bit about your own journey in that's led to you wanting to write this.
I mean, I think most marriages at some point have that. And I was surprised of the magnitude of it. And we've been in ministry our whole married life. So from 45 years on, we've both been in ministry. And we have a spiritual battle, but every single marriage is under a spiritual battle. There's not one couple that Satan isn't shooting darts at and arrows at, because our marriages are supposed to reflect the gospel and reflect Jesus. Yeah. But when we got married, I'm like, Dave's going to be amazing. He's going to meet my needs and make me happy. And I mean, we wrote the book Vertical Marriage because at 10 years, we almost lost our marriage because that resentment thing was huge. But then, marriage goes through cycles of kind of hills and valleys. And we were in a stage where our kids were super busy, maybe elementary school age. And that resentment was starting to build up again, where I was looking at Dave thinking of this long list of things he could do better to make me happy, basically. I didn't think to make me happy, but that's the truth of it. And so we were just in a really busy spell, and some women asked me to come speak at Kensington, our church, to all the moms of preschoolers. So I thought, oh my gosh, it'd be so good if Dave did this with me, because women will love the pastor being there. I'm like, Dave, you want to do this? He goes, yeah, I'll do it with you. So I'm like, what do you want to talk about? He goes, I don't know. Let's just get up there and wing it, which I'm like, oh, okay. So we get up there, and we're sitting on these two stools, and all of a sudden Dave gets super fired up, and he starts pacing on this stage, and he starts saying something like, women, I don't even know if you get it. Do you want to say what you said? Because it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd ever said this
Ever.
this way. I know I'd never said it to Ann. So I'm saying it to a couple hundred women. And it went something like, hey, ladies, as little boys, we usually have somebody cheering for us, our mom or dad. As we get older, maybe if it's sports, it's a coach or music or somebody sees something good in us and they're sort of like cheering. I said, so I got up, I ended up playing college football, and I had a stadium of people on Saturdays saying, you're good. And I said, and then I meet Ann, and she basically says, of all the men in the world, I choose you, Dave Wilson. You're the man.
And I'm sitting on this stool like I've never heard him share any of this. But then he mentioned my name, like, that's cool. Yeah, I did choose you. But then.
And then I just looked at him and I said, and then we get married. And after a while, it's almost like we come into the door at the end of the day and all we hear is boo. Boo! I did it 3 times. And on the third one, I turned toward Ann because I was looking at the women in the room. And she's over there on the stool, and she gave me a look like, you are a dead man.
Wow.
Because I had never
Ever.
said this to her.
Ever.
I don't think I'd ever said it to anybody, but when I was saying it, it was like, this is how it feels. This is exactly how I feel. And so obviously we get in the car.
We get in the car. I don't even know how we ended that day, but I get in the car and I said, you think I'm booing you? I am helping you. Because I really did feel like that. I felt like everybody sees this side of you, but I see all of you, and I'm going to help you to get better. And he said, like, well, do you think it's working? I'm like, no, it's not working. Like, I'm trying to help you to get better, but it's not working. So I have to do it more often, or I have to point out the things you really need to change. And that didn't sound quite right. But all he said was, all I know, Ann, is it feels like you're always trying to tweak me. Feels like I can't do anything up to your perfection. It feels like you need me to be a certain way. And honestly, it's exhausting. It feels like I can never measure up to your standard, no matter what it is, whether it's parenting, whether it's leading spiritually, praying, whatever it is, dressing the kids, or helping the kids. I'm always doing it wrong.
And then there were the times where she would compare me to another husband.
Because I thought that would motivate him.
Highly motivating. Yeah.
I really thought it would. And here's what I thought.
What's so interesting about this, Ann, is every woman who's listening to this is like, yeah, absolutely, it should. Every man who's listening to this going like, no, are you kidding me?
I just thought he'd think, oh, I'll show her. I'll show her what I have in me. What I didn't realize was my words were so demotivating because there were so many. And here's the other thing. I didn't give him words of affirmation because I thought, oh, are you kidding? Everybody's, oh, Dave, you're amazing.
Yeah,
everybody else is giving it to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't need it from me, not realizing that my words probably had the most power of anybody. I don't think we understand that as women and as wives, how important our words were. So anyway, that was the genesis and the beginning of this whole journey. Because
and obviously a lot of it, what I was feeling is because when I came home, I did feel, she never literally booed me, but it felt like all those things, critique, and I'm not as good. And Steve does this. He prays with the kids, reads the Bible every night. And I didn't even realize it. I was spending all my time away. I'd go out there and they're like, hey, you're good. You do this good here. I come home. Yeah. Okay, we'll see you later. And I'd never said that, but I was
like a cycle.
I was obsessed with it. And you can do this in ministry It never ends. Everybody needs something. And so you just start serving and they're applauding, whether it's a Detroit Lions Bible study or preaching or you name it. Here I felt like she didn't think I was good. They thought I was good. And there I was. And again, I'm not blaming her. That was my choice. But I did feel like, wow, there's a reason I'm going to where, because men, and I think women do too, they gravitate to where they're affirmed.
For sure.
Right.
And the reason I didn't, this is so wrong. One of the reasons I didn't affirm Dave was because, this is so messed up. I just thought if I tell him he's doing a good job, he'll get comfortable with that. And it will enable him to stay at this, in my eyes, this low level of participation in the family. Because it felt like all of his energy was going outward. And I wanted that same energy inward. And so I didn't say anything because I thought it'll enable him to stay the same.
Wow.
Which, when you talk about God's view and God's vision for marriage, it is not that. We're not, jockeying for position and I didn't know any of that. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. And so I remember going home from that day. I went up in my room and I started venting to God, which I think is a really good thing. Lord, can you believe this? Can you believe he said that? Because I'm telling Jesus everything. And then at the end of that prayer, it's kind of like Psalms. You can vent to God. This is what I'm feeling. And at the end of the prayer, I got a little more quiet and I said, Lord, do I boo Dave? Am I critiquing him? And I just felt like that inner Holy Spirit conviction of, yeah. And I felt like God was impressing on me to take a journey, to start keeping in track of what was going on in my head, and then start listening to what was coming out of my mouth, not only to Dave, but to our kids. And I'm telling you, it was convicting, man, because it just was in such a normal, this is just it, that I didn't realize how negative I had gotten.
Wow. I want to underscore a couple of things here because it's interesting, Dave, as you're talking about, you're responding to this and going out and seeking, essentially, not even really knowing it, but kind of subconsciously seeking the praise then of people in ministry, which is very easy, like you said, to justify because it's not like you're going out just trying to make a whole bunch of money. There's not a lot of greed and avarice that's like overt there. This is you going and building God's kingdom so you can easily go, hey, this is right, true, and good. Right. And I'm receiving this kind of dopamine hit of this praise right here.
Yeah.
But you're not receiving that at home. So you're chasing after that. But the weight of Anne's words is so much greater. Right. That if her words were encouraging, if her words were lifting and building up, the weight of those words wouldn't matter as much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've hit it. That is, in one sense, that's the theme of Anne's book. Women, wives, moms, you have power. Yeah. It is a gift that God has given women. I'm not saying men don't, but man, it is unique that he has put in your thoughts and your words and your way. Anne talks about a way of being, the way you treat your man.
Because some of us aren't verbally.
Yeah.
We don't use our words negatively verbally, but it's in there, it's, and that's what Dave was saying. It's your way of being. Our family can feel it.
Yeah, there's like an energy that you're bringing to the table that it's like they can feel something in your presence that is not.
Yes.
It's either dissonant, it's not encouraging, it's not lifting up.
Yeah, I mean, a roll of your eyes, like that's so stupid, and I do things and say things and I could feel like, okay, that wasn't good. I got to try that again. And it was just, I felt it. Yeah. And again, out there, I wasn't feeling it as much. I was feeling sort of the opposite. And so I just poured myself into ministry, even stupid stuff like I'm going to go play softball with the guys, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you got 3 little boys
that are in the dirt every single time, and Dave's like, come to the softball game. Yeah. And after a while, I'm like, this isn't fun. They're putting the bottle caps in their mouth and they're, it's like, what are we doing out here?
Yeah. So it's like, hey, my time's done. Those days are over. Let's be a dad. Let's be at home. Yeah. And so Anne goes on this journey. We both did. And again, she writes about it in the book, but I watched her, and this didn't happen in a week or a month. This took over a year. I watched her change. her words started to speak life rather than death. Proverbs 18:21, life and death is in the power of the tongue. I felt like a lot of it, the boo was death. And man, she started, and again, this did not happen immediately, because when she first started doing it, like, hey, I just want to say, you're a good man. You're a good husband. I at first like, whatever. What are you doing? You don't even believe that. You haven't said that.
But I started out because I'm not going to fake it, because I felt like God was saying, and start paying attention. And I'm not the kind of person that's just going to fake it. Like I'm going to say things that just feels wrong to me. So I remember thinking, and as I was working through this and journaling even to God, I felt like God was saying, just start simply by thanking him. And I hadn't done that. You know why? Wow. Talk about pride and arrogance on my part. Well, who thanks me? I do everything around here. Wow. Who thanks me?
And so I remember, easy to fall into that.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the mindset, the brain science of the creating neurological pathways of negativity. Every time I would have any thought about Dave, I'd go down the same rut, the same thoughts, the same path. He doesn't do it. I do everything. And so it started simply, hey, thanks for bringing in the garbage cans. It could be that. That's so simple. Right. And so this one day, it was so funny because we were eating dinner, and I'm really trying to work on this. And so we're eating dinner, and I said, hey, guys, before we pray, this is the families all together, I just want to say, Dave, thank you for working so hard. Like, you work really hard to provide for our family. You do a really good job of that. So thank you for, you're a good man. Thanks for doing all that for us. And the kids are like, can we eat? What's happening right now? And so, but
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I mean, that's what happened. Again, I'm looking at her like, okay, I know she's read this book that tells her she's supposed to, honor her man. And it didn't matter. My chest started puffing up. I was like, I am the man, aren't I? I mean, I didn't say anything, but it was just like, wow, this feels so energizing to me as a man. And so, and again, it goes both ways. It isn't just men get that, but I couldn't believe the impact. It made me want to come home. It made me want to do better. She was saying, you're this, and I'm like, I'm not that good. And I'm like, I want to become that man. And I think that's how it works.
Well, it's so funny. I came up with this. I'm a visual learner and teacher. And I came up with this illustration when Dave and I do some marriage stuff of having a plant, like a live plant on the stage. And I said, when we first get married, we look at this plant who is a husband, and we say, this is the man, like he's amazing in every way. He's lush, he's green, he has all these leaves. But then we're married and we find like, oh, there's a little brown leaf. And we see the leaf like, oh, you used to be super romantic and we used to communicate so much. And now you come home and all you do is watch ESPN. And so we take our little pruners out and we just cut that off. And we say it. Why can't you be more romantic? Or we say, oh, look. And then we look at the plant like, oh, there's a whole bunch of leaves that are brown. So we start taking our pruners and we think this isn't even doing anything. It's not helping at all. So then we get these big hedge clippers and we're like, oh, I'm going to take care of this because you're not romantic. You never pray. You don't lead spiritually. You're always gone. You're not present. You're on your phone. So we start chopping away at this lush green plant. And by the end, when you've chopped it all down, there's just a stump of a man left. Wow. And I remember doing that. And I noticed at Kensington, there's this older couple, probably in their 80s, still in the auditorium. And I walked back to them because they're like the only ones there. And this guy, he's in his 80s. He has his hands in his head in his hands, and tears are just plopping onto the floor. And I said, are you guys okay? And she said, he hasn't stopped crying since you chopped that plant down. He hasn't said anything. I don't know what's going on. And I said, are you doing okay? And he lifts his head and he points to the stage of that stump of a plant. And he said, that stump is me.
Wow.
And she said, like, I had no idea. I had no idea I was hurting him. And I've talked to so many men that are resonating saying, that's me. But men can tend to be more kind maybe than we, and this can go both ways, but a lot of times men won't say anything. And so they're suffering in this silence of just being beat up in their marriage. not literally, but, figuratively and emotionally. And that's demotivating. And I was like, man, we as women, we have so much power to build up, but it feels like it's that we shouldn't do that. And so I think this is a huge topic. Yeah. I think we as women can motivate our husbands and our kids, and it brings us life at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, I think you can easily perceive the tough exterior of a man to think that his heart is tough too, and so you got to take a jackhammer in there to try to chisel away at it, and with criticism, with try to like help him and shape him into somebody that's softer. And he on the inside, most of us we're really soft and tender, especially toward the people, though our wife that we've chosen to spend the rest of our life with. It's like we've put everything on the table.
Yes.
And said, you got all my heart. You got everything. Nobody else. I'm guarded with everybody else around, but it's you. Yeah. And so your words and how you think, what you feel about me means the most to me of anybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, I write at the end of each chapter in this book sort of to say that, hey, ladies, here's a husband's perspective. Your man may think like I do. So maybe here's a good question. And one of the things I say is just what you said, Davey. It's like, we're sort of little boys. Yeah. We have this manly exterior, but inside we're like, do you see me? Yeah. Hey, am I good? It's there. I mean, we don't want anybody to know it, but it's still in there. Yeah. And so when you see and affirm, it's powerful. Now, at the same time, just a caveat, and we try to say this every 4th or 5th page in the book, if you're living with an abusive man, with his words or physical, we are not saying, oh, just speak life and tell him he's amazing. Right. We are saying, get safe. You need to get safe first.
Get help.
I mean, we're not trying to say that, because there are some people saying, you understand, my man is a bad man. We're saying, okay, we're not saying, hey, applaud him. It's a different deal for you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ann.
But it was really amazing to me just how, as I started to pray, here's my prayer. God, show me the greatness in Dave. And I wasn't praying that before because I only saw the negative. And when we pray that prayer, God will show you the greatness because we're all made in God's image. You might think, my husband's not a believer. He is horrible. He doesn't do anything. Well, God sees him. God loves him. God died for him, whether he received it or not. He's still made in God's image. Yeah. And so that was my prayer. Show me the greatness in Dave. And God started answering that prayer. So like this one time, I started praying it every single day. Show me the greatness of Dave, and then help me to communicate it. Whether I text it, I write it, I say it, whatever way, And so this one night, Dave comes in late. He goes into the boys' room. And he starts praying for them as they go to sleep. And he came out, and I just watched him. I'm watching him with new eyes, and I watched him. And he came out, and I said, man, I'm so jealous of you. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, I'm in there, and it's chaos and bedlam. You go in there, and it's like you have this power of influence over them. They're clinging to every word you say. I'm super jealous of that. It's really sweet. And it's so funny because Dave was like, the next night, he's right back up there.
Well, I mean, we're sitting in a bedroom in the same house, 30 years, or so. And I can point to where she was in the hallway, where I was standing when I walked out of the boys' bedroom, which is the next bedroom beside this one. And I'll never forget. I mean, I can tell you where I was standing when she said, you have power and you're good at this. And she wasn't manipulating me, but the next night I find myself running up the stairs, like jumping on the bed with the little boys, like, okay, guys, let's, I was like, wow, look at how motivating those words were. And she was not doing it for that reason. She actually saw me with different eyes. I remember one other night I came home. You can relate to this. I've been preaching all weekend. I was on the sideline with the Lions. It was a football fall weekend. And as I crawl into bed exhausted after like 5 sermons and just a long weekend, right. I say to her as I crawl into bed at 11:30, and all I want to do is go to sleep, I said, man, I'm getting a lot of critiques lately on my sermons. Just feels like more than usual people are critiquing my sermons. That's all I say. And I sort of put my head in the pillow
Okay, so I'm a verbal processor. And so if I think it,
Which can make this additionally difficult. And
very
I'll
difficult.
give you that. Yeah.
Yes. So generally speaking, if I think it, I would say it. So my first thought was when Dave said that, and I can be analytical, and I almost said, and this is what I would have said before, if you would just spend more time studying the scriptures, I think your sermons would be way better. And so I got in this new habit. I started writing this down. Here's what I'm going to do before I say anything. I'm asking these questions. God, should I say it? Should I say it? The next one, if I should say it, when should I say it, and how should I say it? It's so simple. And it takes just this second, but it's like you're in constant communion with God. So I have that thought. I say, God, should I say it? No. Just feel it like, no. God, should I say anything? And this thought came into my mind. And I love the practicality of the Bible. Like James 1 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously without reproach. God, should I say anything? This is the thought that I had. So I said this. Man, I can't imagine what it's like to be you. You have thousands of people depending on your walk with God. What a weighty thing that must be to carry every day.
Wow.
And then there's just silence. And then he pulls me over and then he whispers in my ear, you are my life. And I'm like, what if I would have said, if you just study the word more, you know? And then so to me, it's like bringing Jesus into every aspect of our communication, of our thoughts. Romans 12:2 is one of my favorite verses. Don't be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Wow. And part of that is taking our thoughts captive of what we're thinking about our husbands or our kids or anybody. And then asking God, like, Lord, I need you to transform the way I see my husband and think about him, and then transform my words into words of life so that when I need to speak something hard and true, it can be received.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid to lose my voice. But if you filled the tank up with like, this is who you are, I see these great things, and then we have to come in with the truth and we say it and we package it in a way that's palatable and they can hear it, then I feel like that's helped you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is you can feel, Dave. It's just like when she spoke those words that night, I didn't think, hey, I'm going to pull her and say, you are my life. It just did.
Yeah.
Because women, you have a power that nobody else has. I mean, somebody comes up to me and says something complimentary at church, which is nice. I smile and I say thanks, but I'm thinking they don't know me. They don't know my sin. They don't know my struggles. She knows everything. And so when a wife says to her husband, you're good, it's powerful. True. You know, and that's what and it's also powerful the other way. If you say the opposite, man, he'll remember exactly where he was standing. And again, like Dan said, there are times you have to say the truth in love. Ephesians 4:15. You got to speak it. But if that's all you're saying, he's hearing boo. But if he's hearing a lot of praise and then you have to speak something hard, he's going to respond. I'm telling you, that's the ratio that works.
Yeah,
and the miraculous thing is I changed and so did Dave. I guess what's so crazy. I have my best friend, Michelle, her husband, she's a little behind me in the stage of life. And so we were walking one day and she's just complaining about her husband, his schedule. He travels. He never makes it home. Work is ridiculous. And when he's home, he's not home, he's not present. So she's complaining like, oh, girl, I know. I've been right there. So let's be praying about it. And somehow you need to shift that mindset, start looking for the good. We went through it. So words were hard for her. She goes, I'm not going to fake it by telling him all this stuff, but I can write it. I can journal it. So what she started doing is she starts looking for all the things he's doing right or well, anything. So she gets this journal out, this cool journal. She writes these quick little excerpts. Hey, thanks for putting up the Christmas lights outside. I know you hate doing it every year, but you do it every single year for me and for the girls. You're the best. Hey, I know you didn't make it. I know that you wanted to make it to the entire soccer game of the girls, but at least you made it at the end. And when you walked into the stadium and Macy saw your face, everything changed for her. Wow. Before, she would have only looked at the negative, you know?
Right.
And so that's all she does for an entire year. And so she gives this journal to him for his birthday. He sits in this chair and he cries the entire time. He's reading it, just crying. And this is Dave's best friend. And I said, Rob, why did you cry? And he goes, because I feel like I'm always failing as a dad, as a husband, as a man. I'm not measuring up. And it's the first time I thought, if she thinks this is who I am, I want to be better than that guy.
Yes.
Whew. That was powerful.
Yeah,
And Michelle just doesn't do it once a year. She's not as good with her words, so she'll text him, and just say little things.
I think that's what becomes so paradigm shifting when you can really understand what you're saying here, and that we as men actually want to become better than what you are pointing out and praising.
Yes.
But when we're experiencing a consistent barrage of critique, there's nothing more demotivating than that. And it's so funny to me and interesting, right? We can step back and go, okay, well, your heart and your intention was right. You're like, I want to help him. You're just going about it the wrong way. You're not understanding what is actually motivating him, right?
Right.
And then you're beginning, as you're starting to do what Philippians 4:8 tells us, that whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is, and then it goes on to say, if there's anything excellent or praiseworthy, like if there's anything that you can find there, think about such things. And our marriage coaches are constantly reminding us of that, saying, hey, find the good, because what you focus on, you will find.
Yes.
And if you can find those things, you can begin to speak life into those things. You're going to actually begin, as you're sharing in, you're going to begin receiving the thing that you wanted in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, in some ways, like he said, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It's kind of like this upside down kingdom of God's kingdom that we
there
live
it
in.
is.
It's like nothing really makes sense in that.
Yeah.
Can we, you mentioned something a moment ago about abuse. Can we double click on some of the maybe more difficult issues within marriages and how this might apply or how to walk this line? Because we have a lot of people who are listening to this, and especially a lot of women. I'll tell you this, of our 377 episodes that we've had so far, we probably, in the top 10, I would say 5 of them are related to sexual betrayal of the top 10 most listened to. So it's obvious to us this is a very prevalent issue.
Yeah.
This is where people are seeking answers. They want their marriage to work. There's something going on right there.
Yeah.
Normally it's a husband who has a, porn addiction or they've had an affair, and the woman's doesn't know what to do about this. And so maybe with some of these, because this principle still applies on some level with these kinds of really difficult, painful seasons that marriages walk through. But maybe help us tiptoe the line on what that looks like. There's been trust that has been destroyed. Yeah. The wife, Anne, is really wanting to help their husband, but has found themselves in that same pattern of pointing out all the wrong, thinking that, of course, there's real sin that needs to be pointed out here, thinking that they're helping and contributing, but there's still a struggle there.
Yeah. And I think part of that is we're going to use our words, but I think it's important that we don't use our words as weapons, because when we use our words as weapons, we can annihilate a spouse. Yeah. And it's hard sometimes to recover. And you're doing it because you've been wounded by them, and I get it. You're just wanting to lash back to get them back sometimes because you have felt so wounded or so betrayed. And especially if there's an affair, I would say with that, man, you have to have somebody that's walking with you through that. You need a counselor. You need a great friend, maybe that's walked through it. And they're finding now that women are having more affairs than men, which is crazy, but it's also understandable. Yeah. And so, but I think the thing I'm talking to most women about is this porn addiction thing, which as a woman, and Dave and I dealt with this too. So I'm like, okay, let's get your act together. But when it keeps going on and he says, I'll never do this again, and it happens, you feel incredibly betrayed and lied to. Yeah. And so it's like, how do I love him? And am I supposed to speak life to him in that? And I would say kind of, because any kind of betrayal, there's something deeper beneath that. We all have it. And I get into that in the book. I have some wounds that I haven't dealt with, and that's always going to rise to the surface. And Dave too, any kind of porn or sexual kind of addiction, there's something down there that God's trying to reveal it through the pain. And so I would say, don't give up. Continue to pursue. You have to have friends that you're venting to, talking to. And I think your walk with God, and I would say this in everything, I think the thing that has changed me the most out of anything else I've ever done is I'm in the Word every day. Not legalistically, but it's out of desperation. If I'm 3 days out of God's Word, I look at Dave in a different way. And I all of a sudden want him to meet my needs or to perform at a certain ability or something that I think he's capable of. But when I'm in the Word, and I do the 1 year Bible every year, this is my 18th year, I'm reminded of this is who God is. Like he's with me, he sees me, he hasn't forgotten me. I may have been betrayed, but he's right here. There's not anything he's surprised with, and he wants to walk this with me. And sometimes it's tough love where I might need to separate and get out of the house and to get the attention of my spouse saying, this is really serious and it can't go on like this. That could be the most loving thing you do. But it also reminds me of who I am. I'm his child. I'm worthy because of the cross and the blood. And so those two things, that is a powerful combination, and it changes us. His Word changes us. And I need some sisters who are walking with Jesus that are like praying and fasting. My friend just sent me a bunch of texts where for 8 years, 2 of us, or 3 of us actually, 2 of my friends, we fasted and prayed 1 day a week for our husbands, for our kids, for everything. And man, it got like some stuff that was going on, like, you know, one of the daughters had an eating disorder. She was anorexic. One of the boys was selling drugs. There's some deep, hard stuff. Right. One of the wives had an affair. So we have to have each other, God's Word and God's community to do it. Because as we said when we started, there is a fierce battle going on for our marriages.
Yeah. And I would only add, the secrets have to come out.
Yes.
So, like we wrote in Vertical Marriage a couple chapters about porn. And when we sent it to Zondervan, we actually said, hey, we didn't plan to write these. You don't need to put them in there. Because we got pretty real about my porn struggle 35, 40 years ago. And they ended up saying, hey, these are the 2 best chapters of the book. No Christian books get this raw and real. We're going to put them in there. So they're out there. I'm like, great. Now it's out to the world.
Yeah. And I was like, felt so betrayed. And like, sorry, hun, but I need to write what my betrayal felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all that to say, it was a secret I was hiding for a while. And this was before digital days. This was just, and now it's a million times more easier for men and women to struggle in this area. So obviously you got to bring what's in the dark into the light as hard as it's going to be. And trust me, the first time I told Ann, it did not go well. We write about it. It's like she blew up, and
so mad.
And she should. There's no reason she shouldn't, but so we had to navigate what that looks like. So your question really is, man, that is happening in many marriages.
Right.
I think I just did a sermon a couple months ago on this struggle, and I said to our church, I said, 7 out of 10 men in the church have looked at porn in the last 30 days.
And women too,
scary,
it's really gone up.
It's not that high, but it's
Right.
And so there's these secrets that we're carrying in our marriages.
Right.
And man, and I know a wife's going, and I'm supposed to speak life to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing: that guy has to reveal his secret. Maybe it's the wife that is the struggler. Reveal the secret and start there. And it may not start pretty. It may be really ugly and messy for a while.
Yeah.
But start there and start to build, because you got to rebuild trust. It takes years to earn it. It's gone in seconds. So you got to rebuild it and start over. And God will meet you right there. And then you get to a place where you actually are able to speak life. But it's through a really hard, dark time to get there.
And I think, too, one of the things Dave and I realized was a lot of Dave asked his friends this. Do you feel like your wife loves you? All of his friends. Yeah. Do you feel like she likes you? No. And so even that, I think no matter... We've gone through some real valleys, man. Yeah. Every marriage does, but we're pretty honest about them. And God meets us in the midst of them and uses our struggle. So I don't know where your listeners are, but have hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And God wants to continue to just perfect and change and shape you through this. And man, we need each other in the battle. I think that that's really important, that we need our husbands and the wife side by side to battle the enemy together.
Wow. Wow. So good. Guys, this has been an incredible, my goodness, incredibly encouraging and just uplifting conversation. I mean, I know there's so many people who are going to be listening to this feeling conviction and feeling encouragement, feeling seen. I mean, I think, and that's why you guys experienced that with this 80-year-old man as you're sharing this illustration. And all of a sudden, for maybe the first time in a long time, decades probably, he's felt seen. There's been somebody who has put words to how he has felt. And that's a really important thing, really, to uncover that there's a lot of wounding in each of us as we're bringing this into marriage.
Yeah.
And God has called us as husband and wife to become one. So that means that we're tending to not just our woundings, but to the woundings of our spouse too.
Yes.
And we're doing that with grace. And we're doing that with tender care. We're doing that because there's a battle out there, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to fight that battle out there outside of us if we're continually fighting this battle between us? But that's what the enemy wants us to do, is to look at that battle that's dividing us right now.
Yeah.
And you guys have encouraged us to lock arms again, to stand on the same side of the battle lines and remember what is really the battle that's going on out there. How can we continue to take back territory from the enemy? And even in the midst of our very painful times, how can we follow along with what you guys are doing? I know I'm going to put links on the show notes and under this YouTube video, how people can get a hold of the book, How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. But how else can we tune into some of the stuff that you guys are putting out?
I mean, our podcast is Family Life Today, and it's a radio show on syndicated radio around the country, but also a podcast. Just search anywhere you listen to your podcast, called Family Life Today. And it's actually a YouTube channel now as well, Family Life. And so you can watch it or listen to it. And yeah, if you want to reach out to us, we're just Dave and Wilson on Facebook and Instagram. Ann has no E, just Dave and Wilson. And if we can help, we'll reach back.
Yeah. And you can get the book on Amazon, or probably that's one of the best places to get, or a bookstore near you.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much. This has been an awesome conversation. Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you. Thanks for all you're doing too. Good job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Nothing is Wasted podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and found it as encouraging and insightful as we did. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen, and leave us a rating and review. Your feedback helps us to connect to those who need these stories of hope and healing most, and to reach more listeners just like you. Also, subscribe to our Nothing is Wasted Ministries YouTube channel. Now be sure to stay connected with us on social media. You can follow us at Nothing is Wasted Ministries. Follow me at Davey Blackburn. We'd love to interact with you, so be sure to stop by and let us know how these conversations are impacting you and your story. And if you want to learn more about all the incredible resources we have available to help you navigate whatever valley you're walking through, visit our website at nothingiswasted.com. If you're ready to get started in your journey towards healing and finding purpose in your pain, we'd love to help. Simply go to nothingiswasted.com/start here for your next step. We want to thank our guests, and we want to thank you, our Nothing is Wasted community, for tuning in regularly. Remember, no matter what challenges you face, whatever pain you are walking through, nothing is wasted. We'll see you next time for another incredible conversation here on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. But before you go, check out this short clip from our next episode. Thanks for joining us, friends. We've seen it over and over that when loss of a child comes into the story, then it can cause so much division because you guys you're grieving at different paces, you're different people. It also can bring two people really close together. Can you describe the grief journey for you in terms of like relating with Granger and how that played out with your marriage, and how maybe the difficult stuff, maybe the stuff that really brought you guys together?
Yeah. Uh, we in the hospital, we had decided on organ donation. And so we, as River was being wheeled back to surgery for his organ donation after they closed the doors, Granger and I went outside and made this non-romantic agreement of we love each other. We're going to fight for this. We're going to fight for all the good that we can to come out of
Mm,
this. We're not going to allow this to tear our family apart. And it was just like this choice. Like we said, I do for better or for worse, and this is the worst. And we
mm,
don't know what this is going to look like moving forward, but we are in it together. And so we made that pact. We came
mhm,
home and we just fought for it every day. And I would be grieving really hard one day, and he would be having an okay day, and vice versa. And we just had to learn to have grace for each other. Like I
mm,
couldn't get mad at him if he was having a good day, or he couldn't get mad at me. We also had to have grace for our kids because your children grieve so differently. And it was a fight every day. But it did truly solidifies. There's something about walking through that fire together that solidifies your bond together, that God brought you guys together for a reason, and that with Him, we can't do it apart from Him, but with Him, you can make it through any sort of trial or grief or suffering or pain. It's not easy, but if you allow God to work through you both, it can bring you closer together, and we are stronger because of our pain.